So, a question I hear all the time is, should I go to art school? And this is coming from people who are already in art school. And you probably stumbled upon this video because you're also looking at different art schools and, questioning where you're going to end up in 20 years from now. um, the first thing I'd like to say is art school does not mean you're going to learn how to become an artist and become successful. Art school is a place where you can go for a while and kind of incubate, and you're actually given a lot of privilege if you do go to art school because you're given time, you're given facilities to work with, you're given input from lecturers and teachers and professors. You're in a peer group of people that are working, and there's tons of studies that say, when people work in groups, it tends to accelerate the level at which they create work. So going to art school it has a ton of benefits. However, there's a lot of people that go to art school and they never actually become artists. And this is what scares the mothers and fathers of the world out there, that their kid's going to go to art school, they're going to be $120,000 in debt, and then they're going to come out, and what type of job are they going to get? I should actually look that up. I'll be back in 1 second. I'm going to go look up how many art graduates there are every year. Okay, so I found the number. It's about 40,000 graduates every year in the arts, and they make up around 1.6% of the workforce in the United States, and about 10% of the people that go to school will make a living as an artist. And this includes music, dance, probably graphic design, I imagine, visual effects, these sort of things. So there's some places, obviously, where you have a lot better chance of, actually finding work. In some places like painting, which might be a little bit more difficult. However, painting does have its own commercial art world that is often not really talked about, and I'm going to make some videos about that later on too. So, when thinking about if you want to go to art school, think about what type of school you want to go to, first of all. And this can be more difficult than people think. I've had so many students, I've taught for 13 years now. I've had so many students throughout the years that ended up in the wrong school. I worked at a place where we're creating interactive media, so a lot of people think it's about like 3D game design and this sort of stuff, but it's more about making interactive installations and using sensors and these sort of things. And the actual goal of that program, it's called Prague College, in Prague, Czech Republic. The goal of that program is to create people that can use technology to create art. Okay, the goal is not to create somebody who can be a 3D game designer. So a lot of people come in there and they're like, oh, we get to learn, After Effects and 3ds Max and this sort of stuff. That'll be awesome, but then they get into the school and they realize it's about art, and they start getting hammered on concept and these sort of things, and they get really frustrated that they ended up at the wrong school. So my first bit of advice is find out where you're going. Do some research, look up who are the professors at these places. Go and cyberstalk all these people. Find out who the professors are, find their Instagram accounts, see what kind of work they make, when was the last time they had a show, where they went to school, all this sort of stuff. Just figure out who these people are that you're going to be paying a lot of money to. In the US, there's also a lot of different types of schools. So you might be thinking, okay, do I want to go to a private school or do I want to go to a public school? And I went to both. So I kind of know, both of those worlds really well. I went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I went to an academy, the Lime Academy of Fine Arts. I went to the Glasgow School of Art and the University of Colorado Boulder as well. So I've dealt with a lot of different institutions of different sizes, and every single one has its pros and cons. So the first school I went to was a place called Lime Academy of Fine Arts. Doesn't exist anymore. But it was in Old Lyme, Connecticut, and this was a straight up classical academy where you drew from the figure 8 to 12 hours a day. And these places still exist. The New York Academy is a really big one, of course. But you can poke around and find other figurative places if you start looking around at different universities too. Some universities actually are more known for specific types of work. Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts as well is known for kind of traditional figurative work, that sort of stuff. So if that's like something that you dream of doing, I just want to sit and draw and paint from a live model for 8 to 12 hours every day, 7 days a week. Well, we didn't have it on weekends. I don't know what the policies are now, but when I was at Lyme Academy, we could go in to any class, kind of. So if there was a figure drawing class and you got there early, you could kind of, get into the back and draw, even if you weren't in the class. I don't know how open other schools are about that, but they're really cool about it there. I think generally those teachers, they're people, Art Center Pasadena, that's another one. They're more figurative, very illustrative school. And these teachers, they're people that are really good at drawing the figures. So they'll see you really trying, and they're usually, pretty open to helping you out learn this skill, which is drawing from life. School of the Art Institute of Chicago. Now, this is a school that has an awesome reputation. It's, consistently ranked in the top 10 in the U.S. And it's crazy expensive. I don't even know how expensive it is. Let me go check. Okay, I'm smiling because I can't believe, I knew it was going to be crazy, but it's even more crazy than I thought. So average cost total, this is living expenses for all your food and rent and all this sort of stuff, combined with tuition and fees, is now $63,000 a year. Okay, this is a ton of money. So personally, the way I think about it is, if you have SAIC on your resume, that looks good. Does that help you in life? Yes, it does. Is it worth paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to get? That's up to you and to figure out your financial situation. Often when students would ask me this question, my gut impulse was, okay, do you have rich parents? That's what I'd want to ask. Because if you can afford to do it, then do it. I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, while I was there, I got to walk through the retrospective of Bill Viola's work. Bill Viola is one of the biggest video artists in the world. And I got to walk through his retrospective with him and talk to him and ask him questions. And, the art world is a place where the more you can connect with these people that are, very prominent, and the better chances you have. Obviously, that's why people want to move to New York. They want to be in the center of where everything's happening. So there is benefits, certainly. If you can afford it, there's certainly benefits from having those types of names on your resume. Another type of school is the public schools, where I also went to the University of Colorado Boulder. And this program, there's a bunch of them like this. I think University of Kansas is one, maybe University of Iowa, I think University of Indiana, University of Oregon. There's a list. I'll actually put a list in the description of the video. And there's actual spreadsheet of all fully funded programs. So fully funded programs are public universities. These are usually for MFA programs, for grad students. But these types of programs, they'll actually pay you money because you teach. So you get a monthly stipend at CU Boulder. Let me check. I'll find out how much it is at CU. So currently, you can get a $2,200 stipend every month. You get full health insurance, you get a bus pass and all that sort of stuff. They have family housing and different types of dorms and stuff that you can live in, and you get all your tuition paid. Every program's a little bit different, but for painting, 100% of your tuition is paid. This all comes by teaching classes. So you become what's called a GPTI, which is a graduate part-time instructor, and you're actually an employee of the university. So that's why you get health coverage, and you get paid pretty well. You actually get paid better than an adjunct as a student, which is kind of weird. So I'm a big fan, and when people tell me, this comes up quite often with students, and they're asking, I'm a big proponent of state universities because they tend to have like a Division I school like CU Boulder. They have a bunch of money. I mean, these schools are just insane octopus tentacles that, they take care of all these different sort of things. But mainly that means they have a lot of money. So buying a laser cutter is not a big deal. Or making a print shop with, all these different types of facilities like a washout booth and huge litho stones and different types of presses and all this sort of stuff. They have a bunch of money to buy all that sort of stuff. So you can go to these places and essentially just make a ton of work while you're there. And that should be your goal when you're in school. A lot of people get caught up in these kind of conceptual games and because you're in an academic situation, but your main goal should be create as much work as you possibly can. Okay? Because you want to have something when you get out. If you go to school for 6 years and at the end you've got a bunch of ideas in your head and you don't have an actual pile of stuff, this is my stuff, this is 100 paintings, there's kind of no use, so you got to be able to come out with literally a show that should be at least 12 to 15 finished paintings, and that will allow you to actually get a chance showing in other group shows, maybe getting a chance getting represented, but you'll have a body of work, and that's super important. Now here's the flip side to this. My wife doesn't have a day of schooling in art school, and she makes her livelihood from selling paintings and sculptures. She does this just because she's really good. There's a lot of people like this. There's a huge painter, I'll double check to make sure if he just has his bachelor's, but his name's Christian Rex Van Minnen. And he was had one of the top art books on Amazon, and I believe he only has his bachelor's. Okay, yeah, so it is true. He has a BA from Regis University. I saw his show up at Robuchon Gallery in Denver, and his paintings are $40,000, $60,000 a piece. He obviously gets shows. He's selling books. He's got hundreds of thousands of followers because he's really good at painting. Okay? So don't think that school is going to make you good at painting. It might give you a place where you can incubate for a while and you can experiment and maybe find your voice, and you're kind of, you're not in the real world to a degree, because essentially you're just creating work for teachers. You're not necessarily thinking about that sort of stuff, but you should be. Okay? So go into art school understanding what the outcome is at the end of the day. As somebody teaching, I'm around a bunch of other people making a living with art degrees. From what I looked up online, the statistics are really, really grim. It's like I said, it's around 10% of people are making a living at this. What's the main job you can do if you get, an MFA in painting? the main thing you can do, so to speak, in terms of applying for jobs is applying for residencies, applying for teaching positions, and attempting to sell your work and just live completely off of your work through art fairs and getting represented by galleries and all this sort of stuff. So there are ways to make money, and I know a lot of people making an okay living. I don't know a lot of people making an amazing living. It's not like you're, becoming a software engineer or something like that, which is in very high demand and has a very high salary. So, there was a position at CU Boulder, I know, that opened up once for a tenure track foundations position. And there was over 200 applicants for that one position. So that means that 0.5% of the people that applied for that job got it. To contrast that, Yale lets in like 6% of their applicants. So if you're trying to find a tenure track position, it's crazy difficult. It doesn't even make sense. I read another thing I can link down in the description as well, that this biology professor looked for a tenure track job, and he sent out 112 applications total. Out of that 112 applications, he got 4 offers. So and who knows how good he was. Maybe he was awesome. I have no idea. But it was around 1 in 37, I guess, or something like that, that actually gave him a chance, or offered him a job. So you're looking at years of work trying to find a job as a tenure track position. A lot of these universities, they'll have like 2 painting professors, and once you're tenured, they're there forever. So the guy or girl or person has to basically leave their job until it opens up again. So that's something to think about as well. With that being said, if you're somebody who really feels like a calling that you really need to be in the studio all the time, and that's something that is just really fulfilling for you, then by all means look into schools that have nice studios that allow you to just have a place to work. In lieu of that, there's other ways to educate yourself. Obviously, you can go online. You can sign up for a drawing class in your local community. A lot of, communities have these figure drawing classes, so you can find those. There's also websites where you can, do 5-minute gesture drawings or whatever, these sort of things, and they change the pose on a website as well. I'm sure there's apps, like figure drawing apps with a bunch of poses and models and this sort of stuff, so you can draw from your phone. The main thing, I think the reason why people love art so much, a lot of it has to do with craftsmanship, and with painting and drawing, there's not a lot of really, hard to get tools. It's extremely accessible. That's why we do it when we're 2 and 3 years old. Oh, here's a piece of paper, here's a crayon, make a mark. This sort of thing, it's something that's available to all of us, and to act like school is the only way to get this education is absolute silliness. There's plenty of examples of artists who have done it without school. Like I said before, if you want the space to do it, that's important. I feel really privileged and really lucky to have been able to have a space at certain points in my life where I could just focus on my work for years. That's something a lot of people can never have. And that gets into the whole idea, okay, what do you do when you get out of art school? What's the first thing everybody says when they get out of art school if they want to continue making art? They start looking for what's called residencies. And residencies are small, almost like communes, I guess you could call them. Each one's different. But they're essentially these cabins, a bunch of cabins in the woods. Everybody gets a cabin that's like a studio. You go there and work all day. then everyone eats together at a certain time and there's a little bit of socializing. And these are places where you can make a lot of contacts and also get a lot of work done, because a lot of people, boom, they finish school and all of a sudden that first, debt student loan payment pops up, whatever, in that summer that you finish, and all of a sudden it might not be much, whatever, $400 a month or something, but all of a sudden that pressure is there to repay those things. So people all of a sudden they're like, oh, I got to get a job, and then they get sucked into that world, and they do that for a couple years, and then they're like, I need to get away from all this. So they try to get into residency so they can get back into their work. So that's one simple way to something that you can do after you finish school. Another one are grants, a lot of different grants. Just type in, artists grants into Google. I'm sure you'll find a big list. I'll give you the website for the residencies too. It's ArtistRes, I think .net, but that'll be another one for the description. And but yeah, there's a bunch of grants, and you're not going to get a grant that you can live off of unless you get the MacArthur Fellowship or whatever, something like that, which is probably like $600,000. But even if you get a huge grant, like $15,000 grant, in reality, how long is that going to go? So grants really aren't necessarily a way to make a living. A lot of places need people to do different types of classes, these sort of things. You can hustle and just try to, do different adjuncting positions for a while. Generally, a lot of people go straight to adjuncting, which is this kind of crazy thing that the universities have begun to implement, where the majority of these classes are now being taught by adjuncts instead of actual college professors. So realistically, for an adjunct for a semester, you're probably going to make like $6,500 for like a whole semester. So you can figure out those numbers in your head. If you're lucky enough, and you can't get too many classes at the university, right? Because then you're full time, and then they have to like pay benefits for you and stuff like that. So they'll probably only give you like 2 classes. So that's $12,000, maybe 3 times a year. So you're looking at maybe like $36,000 a year, doing that 2 classes in fall, 2 classes in spring, and then 2 classes in summer as well. So the numbers aren't high at all, for adjuncting. It's a total grind, and it's kind of exploitive as well. And so looking at it, think about what you really want to do. I want to give you some of the realities. Couldn't be happier. Like I've said, I'm so glad that I've had the opportunity to go to art schools and follow this passion that I have. And I'm not happier anywhere else than in the studio. It's even when I'm on vacation, I have to have a sketchbook. I have to keep creating because I just can't stop. And when I've worked other jobs, it just does not work at all for me, because I'm just in a different mindset. So if you find yourself in that sort of situation where you feel like you're really going to be driven by your own initiative, right? Nobody is going to be driving you or give you a deadline after you get out of school. So if you feel like you can't do that now, and here's some tough truth, if you feel like you can't motivate yourself enough to create work right now, art school might not ever give you that drive. Okay? So that has to do with self-discipline, and there's so many graduates and undergraduates coming through these programs. You're not even going to get that much attention while you're in school. So if you're fortunate enough to have the funds to be able to pay for school and give you time to develop, then by all means go for it. But know that it's a tough road ahead, and know that these sort of things, they are big decisions and they are things that stay with you for a long time. Like I said before, people do it all the time though. People go to art schools and they get jobs, 10%. You know, it seems crazy low. I know, 10% of them get art-related jobs, but not terrible. So if you feel like you can be part of that 10%, I definitely recommend doing it. Thanks for watching, and if you like this sort of thing, head over to the website, take my course. If you got any questions, hit me up in the comments, and thanks for watching. Good luck.